In today's video, I'm going to show you how to build the best gaming PC possible for in and around a $1,200 budget. A system that's going to provide amazing performance at 1080 and 1440p, should future-proof you for the games that are going to land in the next year or two, and provide great upgrade paths too. A build that's going to look amazing with an all-white colour scheme and hopefully be pretty simple to put together. So without any further ado, let's dive into it. Corsair Custom Labs is here and supports a wide range of products and components, now including PC memory. Simply choose your desired Vengeance RGB configuration of speed and capacity and pick from one of the amazing custom designs. Whether you're into sci-fi or this amazing variation of Cherry Blossom, there's a myriad of options to pick from. You can match your peripherals with the same Custom Labs design too for a fully unified gaming setup, and even configure multiple product designs at once with live renders. Learn more about Corsair Custom Labs and check it out for yourself at the first link in the description below. As usual, I'm going to walk you through the components as we put this system together, starting off with things like the CPU and motherboard. I'm going to then look at performance later, and somewhere in the middle we'll have a lovely montage of how hopefully amazing this build looks when it's all complete. Now let's start with the motherboard. Why not start with the motherboard? I have gone for this, the Gigabyte B850 AORUS Elite Wi-Fi 7 ICE. Now when it comes to white theme motherboards, this is about as good as you get, and I'm a huge fan of what Gigabyte have actually done with this design. Now it's a reasonably good value motherboard as well, sitting on the B850 chipset, which is AMD's kind of mid-range chipset. For those of you that might not know, the chipset basically dictates the feature set that's available on a motherboard. B850 still gives you things like overclocking support for the CPU and the memory. You still get things like fast USB Type-C and Type-A, Wi-Fi 7 if the board supports it, and PCI Gen 5, not only for the graphics card slot, but also for the actual M.2 drives as well. That makes it a perfect match for this, the AMD Ryzen 5 9600. I'm going to recommend that you go for either the 9600, which I've got here, or the 9600X, depending on what's available in your region. Here in the UK, we've got the new non-X version, slightly cheaper, but I know in America it might be exclusive to system integrators and PC builders like, shameless plug, GeekaPC, which is our UK pre-building company, where you can buy builds just like this, assembled by us. I'll link it down below. The Ryzen 5 9600 range, as we're going to call it, is perfect. It's got 6 cores, 12 threads, and great clock speeds. Obviously just completely ruins anything Intel have got at the price point, and the only sweet spot I can see right now in Core Ultra would be with the Core Ultra 7, which has currently got a big price drop. The problem with it is it just doesn't offer up great gaming performance, and the only reason really you might buy it is if you want to do video editing and rendering too, something where this CPU is maybe lacking a couple of cores to really do the job properly. Alongside the CPU, I'm also going to be installing into the motherboard the memory and the storage at this stage. Let's start with memory. I've gone for this Corsair Vengeance RGB DDR5 kit. This particular kit is 56, but I'd recommend maybe getting a 6000 megahertz kit if your budget allows. I'll link all the options below for Amazon for different regions. And then for the SSD, I've gone for this, the Crucial P310. This is a 1 terabyte drive. It's Gen 4, so it's the last gen, but it's still plenty quick enough. We're talking over 7 gigabytes a second on the read, slightly slower on the write. We have reviewed this drive over on GeekaWhat.com, which you can check out in the cards now, and really looked upon it rather favorably. Installing Ryzen CPUs is so simple. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this before. If you haven't, let me show you. All we're going to do is push the arm down on the socket, flick it up, maybe more gently, less aggression required, and then lift the socket up. That will then reveal your CPU socket pins, which are very, very fragile. And then the Ryzen CPU is going to slot into place. Careful. What you'll want to see is that the triangle on the CPU should be pointing towards the top left corner of the motherboard, up towards your CPU power connectors in this instance. Then the arm's going to go back down. The plastic cover will pop off. If you ever sow, return the board, have a problem with it, you're going to need to put that back on to protect the socket. In terms of the RAM, let's do that next. As it flies unceremoniously out of the box, I'm going to be using the 2nd and 4th RAM DIMM slots in today's build because they're the ones you need to use in order to get that dual channel performance benefit. So a bit of pressure to both sides, that'll click into place. It really is nice and simple, and you aren't going to have too many problems. The white on the memory actually matches really nicely with some of the white accents on the board, which makes me happy. In terms of the SSD, we're going to put the M.2 drive under this big heatsink here. Simply use the tallest little latch to pop it off. If you've got a thermal pad protector on here, like this blue blue one we can see in front of us. Make sure you go ahead and remove that. Then I'm going to slide the drive into place. There we are. Good stuff. This is the Gen 5 slot, so you could put it in one of the Gen 4 slots instead if you wanted to. I'm quite happy with the Gen 5 slot, as I don't plan on putting a Gen 5 drive in this build anytime soon. And then clip it back on. And that's it. With the motherboard assembly pretty much complete, I'm going to go ahead and check out the CPU cooler for today's build. And I've gone for a brand that some of you might not have seen for a little while. This is the Deepcool LQ360WH. Now, the good news is that here in the UK and Europe, it's pretty easy. In America, availability is a bit more difficult. So I'll link an alternative white liquid cooler below that's going to give you similar performance at a similar price point. Now, I like this model quite a lot for a couple of reasons. I've always been a fan of Deepcool products. I use them in a huge number of builds in the videos over the years. And this thing here really lives up to expectations. And you get Deepcool's new performance optimized fans pre-installed. They don't look RGB, but they are. There's an RGB ring around the fans, which is great. And the bearings in these fans, I believe, are pretty top tier. The cool thing though, which is the main reason I picked it up, is this, which is a screen, but not a screen. You can flip it off to rotate it, which is a bit of a cool solution. And we can see on here stats like CPU and GPU temperature. It's not quite as advanced as what you'll find on like a full LCD display, but I think it actually has a slightly cooler aesthetic, which we'll see later, and it makes it a bit more affordable. In terms of wiring, there are a few wires to worry about. You've got one here for your pump header. You've got then another one for your RGB with a pass-through, which is good, and your USB cable to power up the metrics. What I do like though about these fans is that they're all daisy chained in together, which is great. And presumably, yeah, there's a little cable point here. I think you may be able to plug into any of these three fans with the included harness to make cable management a bit easier. But again, we're going to test that out a bit later. The main reason I got the cooler out was to check out the mounting hardware situation and to understand whether or not the AMD brackets that come included on our motherboard need to be removed or not. And I have a feeling, having installed a lot of Deepcool coolers in the past, the answer is yes. Yes, it is. Right, so this is pretty simple. On the motherboard, you'll find these stock AMD brackets. That's these two white brackets here with two silver screws per bracket. We're going to take these off and replace them with these, which, as you can see, are some little screws with built-in black stoppers for AMD. So take out the 4 silver screws, take out the white 2 plastic brackets, and then add these stoppers in their place. That's pretty much it for now. It will just make the CPU cooler installation a little bit easier. Now then, with the case, no, not the case, the motherboard assembly, we can look at the case. And this is one of my favorite value optimized chassis on the market. This is the Antec C5 ARGB. Now, what makes this case really great is the number of included fans. You get 3 reverse intake fans on the side, 3 reverse intake fans on the bottom, and a single 120mm fan in exhaust. That makes it pretty awesome value, really. This is actually one of the most popular cases over on GeekaPC, so obviously you guys must like it. And I can absolutely see why when you consider how great value this Antec chassis really is. With the motherboard pretty much good to go, the next step is to move this into the case. Now, because this is an ATX board and this is an ATX chassis, it's all going to fit perfectly out of the box. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to line the motherboard over the standoffs, and you can see that that looks like a pretty good fit. I'm then going to go ahead and pop our 9 screws in, so that's 3 at the bottom, 3 along the middle, and 3 at the top, just to secure this nice and firmly into the Antec C5. With the motherboard in, the next step is to go ahead and get our Deepcool cooler installed into place. Now, you can see here on the water block that the thermal paste comes pre-applied, but that there's no brackets to mount. Now, that's an easy problem for us to solve because we need to add on these AMD brackets. Simply take off the plastic cover, a little something like so, and then these plastic brackets are just going to slot in on the bottom of the cooler. So you can see here, we've got one that goes at the top, a further one that goes down the bottom, if I can hold that into place, and then you'll see this bag of included thumb screws and small screws. The smaller screws are going to fasten these brackets to place. The thumb screws we're going to need in a moment. I'm then going to go ahead and just add on this little RGB cable that comes included. And I got it wrong. I thought the fans daisy chained. They actually don't, which is a bit of a shame. Instead, we've got this sort of daisy chain connection. Now, in reality, this isn't a huge deal because you're not going to see it, but it would have been way better if these fans actually just automatically clicked into place and joined to one another. I'm then going to go ahead and position the radiator up to the top of the case. First things first, we've got this little cable to pass through. So that looks like the closest grommet. Then the radiator radiator can slide in. Aha. And using the included radiator screws, we can actually get it secured into place. Now, this can be a pretty awkward thing to do. However, the good thing is once you've got 1 or 2 screws in, the radiator will hold itself. So there you go, there's a second screw. I wouldn't advise you leave it like that for a prolonged period of time. However, it's going to be perfectly fine for now while I go ahead and fasten the remaining 10 radiator screws into place. A little something like so. All I then need to do is just go ahead and position the water block into place. I am just going to remove this plastic thermal paste cover. There we go, that's a bit more like it before popping it onto place. I think I'm going to go sort of this orientation such that all the cables and stuff are going to then pop out the right. It's a good job I left the protective cover for the screen on because it's going to be absolutely covered in fingerprints. Once you've got a couple of these on, you're going to be just fine. So let's try and negotiate that into place. Good stuff. Top tip with this is not to screw them all in all the way, one by one. Do each one a little bit and do a few laps around the cooler just to make sure you're not putting any undue pressure on any particular bit of the CPU for any period of time. Now then, that's starting to come together and look a bit more like a gaming PC build. What I'm going to do next is split the cables and wiring into 2. So I'm going to do the front panel cables now so I can install the GPU and then finish off with the power supply cables at the end. Now, in terms of the front panel cables, there's a few we're going to do. So that's HD audio to the bottom left. That's for the headphone and mic jack on the front of the case. The front panel connector to the bottom right. That's for things like the power and reset switch. And then finally, both are USB ports. So our USB 3 Type A, which is the larger one, and then USB 3 Type C, which is the smaller connector. The front panel cables are in. I think we can reward ourselves with the GPU. And I don't know if I actually spoke about this earlier. I don't think I did. I've not spoken about this yet. This is the Powercolor RX 9060 XT. Now, when it comes to a PC build in and around this budget, there is for me one GPU option, and that's this, the 16GB variant of AMD's 9060 XT. For context, it's going to provide you performance that's similar to the RTX 5060 Ti, but at a much lower price point. And this 8GB model actually has enough VRAM to be useful, especially when it comes to 1440p gaming. This Powercolor model is a fully white design. They've gone for a white 8-pin power cable, fully white heatsink. The PCB itself is white. We've got 3 fans, of course, on here as well. It's quite a narrow card. Obviously, the 9060 XT is just not that hot of a GPU. If you look at some of the performance numbers, of course, I'll be diving into detailed system-specific benchmarks later, but comparing it to the competition, and there really is nothing else that's a match for this GPU, especially on a cost per frame basis. Great at 1440p, epic at 1080p, and a really good fit for the latest AAA titles. Now, hovering this into the case, and we can see that's going to look, I think, pretty nice. What I do need to do, though, is remove a couple of the rear PCI lane covers, and it looks like in today's build, it's the very top 2. So I'm going to go ahead and just take out the first one, take out the second one, before sliding the card into place. Now, line it up nice and easily, get that card shimmied on in there, make sure your PCI lane's good. We're looking pretty nifty to me, and then just return the PCI latch if it's still up. Lovely stuff. And add the 2 screws you took out just a second ago back into place to secure the GPU down. It really is that simple. You might want to hold it up while you do this just to preemptively try and prevent any GPU sag whatsoever. And you can see it really is as easy as that. Now, the only thing the graphics card is missing is power. And that's also something I need to plumb up to the motherboard and CPU areas too. And for power, I've picked up this, the Corsair RM750E. It's 750 watts. It's cybernetics platinum in terms of efficiency and cybernetics A for noise. Now, the beautiful thing about this power supply is these cables. Look at those. They're not fully braided. They're like nylon sleeved, but individually so. Now, looking at the build today, we need a pair of CPU cables. So that's those 2. We're going to need a SATA power connector. That's these ones just here for the built-in case ARGB hub. We're also going to need a PCI harness, but the old school style. So the one that ends with this particular cable here. Now, on this power supply, that's powered from the Gen 5 cable. Can't forget the big one, the motherboard power cable. So you can see here, this is a nice little 24-pin number. You get this nice little cable comb already attached, which is great. Plug all of the cables I've just talked about into the power supply. So to summarize once again, that's the GPU, then a pair of CPUs, a SATA, and then finally our big chunky motherboard connector. Go ahead and then slide the power supply into place. That's just going to rest nice and easily here at the back of the chassis. Screw it into place. And then it's just a simple case of plugging those cables up to the top left of the motherboard, right hand side of the motherboard, and of course to the GPU itself. And with that, we've got ourselves a pretty much complete gaming PC build. So should we turn it on and see how good it looks? Moment of truth time. Oh yes, you know what? That looks amazing. Now we've currently got no screen. I'm guessing that's going to be a Windows job, and the bottom right fan isn't spinning. So let me find that cable. There we go. We've fixed it. Okay, give me a minute. I'm going to get this thing into Windows and then see if we can get that pump block looking pretty. I've got to admit, I am a bit of a sucker for a good looking white build, but how well does this system perform? Well, as usual, we've put it through its paces in a range of titles, everything from Hogwarts Legacy and F1 25 to Cyberpunk and Call of Duty's Black Ops 6. Now, on your screen now is a summary of the numbers that we achieved. Most of these tested at 1440p high, but Fortnite and Doom tested at 1080p competitive and 1080p high settings respectively. Taking a look at some of these titles in a little bit more detail, and Hogwarts Legacy at 1440p high performed well, offering up an average of 93.8 frames per second. Call of Duty's Black Ops 6 in the Zombies mode, again at 1440p high, pulled in a very respectable 110.3 FPS. Not bad. While Doom the Dark Ages is a title we felt we needed to drop to 1080p just to make sure the frame rate was tip-top. And here we achieved just shy of 81 FPS with 80.7 on average. Finally, in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, this build also performed well. 1440p high settings pulled in 89.1 FPS on average. Good stuff, and the game I thought looked visually really very nice. If you want to pick up any of the parts mentioned in today's video or check out latest pricing and availability, you'll find Amazon links for a range of regions in the description below. Get subscribed to see more from me. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.